Hi everyone, I'm Steve O'Farrell for CDL, and today we're going to be looking into the Nano reverse osmosis system. So likely if you're looking at this video, you have purchased one of these equipment or you're looking into purchasing it. So what we're going to do, we're going to open those boxes and assemble the small ROs. On this side here, we have the 3-membrane system, and on this side here, the 2-membrane system. So let's open up that box. As you may notice, when you open up the box, everything is very well packaged in there, so the equipment is not damaged, and it's all contained into foam at the bottom and on the top. We gently pull our small RO. Table's a little small. We have another small boxes here with the accessories. And we have the tubing. So let's put this box away. Here you have tubing for the suction, which is in yellow. The blue is for the permeate or the filtrate, and the red for the concentrate. In the little box here, we have the membranes, filters, and accessories to assemble. Instruction manual. Very important that you read this before you look into assembling your ROs. You have the tools to undo like the filter or the membrane housing. We also supply a small kit of fittings and O-rings just in case something is being damaged, so you have what is needed to repair. You have 2 5-micron filters, which are identified right here, and our 3 membranes. And at the bottom, you have the suction strainer. This is a very important component because that will prevent small particles to get inside of the system and damage the pumps. So this must be installed at all time on the suction line. So first thing we do, we're gonna read our instruction manual, of course. You know, it's very important. We made a very nice manual. We made it simple. You have nice graphics in there and big print instruction. It's bilingual, French and English. On this side, we're gonna use the English side. You have the list of the components, and you have the graphics that gives you the instruction how to operate the equipment. So I suggest that you start reading it before you start working on the equipment. Let's say we've read our manual and we're ready to do the installation of our membranes. Okay, so we have the 2 filter housing, which are the pre-filters here. So those are mounted in series. So like the sap flows through one, then through the other, and then back to the recirculation pump and the membranes. So we will remove these. See, little O-ring came off here, so you have to make sure that the O-ring stays in its groove. Second O-ring, everything's in place. So once we've done that, we're gonna go and take the first housing for the membranes. So we're gonna disconnect one housing at a time so we don't get all mixed up into the tubing. To disconnect the housing, all you have to do is there's a little blue clamp here that prevents the connection from coming off. Got it. So you press the ring on the side and just gently pull the fitting. You don't want to be too rough with these, because don't forget, these components are plastic. So if you rough them up, well, there's risk that you damage them. Although they're pretty sturdy, but especially if the equipment is cold, it's been in the cold, better let it warm up before you touch any of these fittings. And we have one here at the end, which is the concentrate. If you look at the housing here, the concentrate is being fed on this side here. The one that's perfectly in the center, that's the permeate line. That does connect to the blue line. And this one here, as you can see, will connect to the red or the concentrate line, because it already has gone through one pass on the first membrane. Like right now, we'll remove the bottom one, the last membrane that the sap is being fed through, the third stage, we could say. Normally, you can undo those by hand, but if it gets tough, you have the wrench here that you can put on it, like so, and just remove it. Now we have the caps in our hands. We're going to take one membrane, open up the bag. Don't forget, once those have been wet, they have to be wet all the time after that. You don't want them to dry up, okay? You have the brine seal here, or kind of a seal that prevents the liquid from flowing back through the permeate side. Okay, so this, I suggest that you take some lubricant, either glycerin or a food grade lubricant such as silicone-based grease, and you lightly coat. You don't want to put too much on it, but you only put, you want to wet it. Same thing with all the small O-rings that you have on the filter housing and also on the housing for the membrane, okay? So if you looking at the bottom of this one, there's a place here. You see right in the center, there's a kind of an adapter. And this part of the membrane here with the O-rings is sliding head first. Okay, so the brine seal is closer to the cover. So you just push it in all the way until it reaches bottom with your thumb, and make sure you have some light coat of lubricant on it and put it back together. Okay, so once that is done, okay, you may put it back in place. So if you remember well, you have one membrane on one side, the other membrane's on the other side. Okay, so this one is going to go like so here. We're going to replug the red line at the end. You just push it all the way. We're going to plug the blue line in the center. That's where the permeate is going to be coming out. Okay. And the red line here on the side port. And once we're done, we put our little clip. Back on. Perfect. Then we go to the next one. Remove the clip on this end. Press the ring and pull gently the tubing. Make sure your O-rings are properly in place. and tighten up the cover. You don't want to over tighten it, just good little snug is fine. The membrane is always being fed from the cover side, okay? So that's where the concentrate is gonna, or the maple sap if you want, is gonna be fed into the membrane. Then it will go down through the membrane. Concentrate will come out here on the side port, and the filtrate will come out in the center port. So we're gonna put it back in place. There you go. So I suggest, so you don't get mixed up in all the tubes and everything, that you go one vessel at a time. So that way, you're going to be sure that the tubings are going to end up in the right position. Our next step is to put our filter cartridge in. Those are very important, and they may have to be replaced once in a while. Of course, preferably, if you are going to do like a chemical wash, these cartridges should be replaced and put like fresh one when you concentrate maple sap. When you install the cartridge, you want to make sure the cartridge is being centered properly with the top of the filter here, and then you screw it on. And again, you don't want to over tighten it, but you want to snug it up enough so there is no leaks. And don't forget the silicone-based grease on all O-rings, like at all times. It prevents the O-rings from sticking, so that way it's much easier to remove them. And also it does protect the O-rings, prevents like the O-ring gets stretched when you try to take it apart. To center the housing back on the filter head, you may have to sometimes to pull down the tubing a little bit. As I said, it's a little snug in there. We want to make the machine as small as possible, so there we go. Let's get so our next step will be to install the tubing on the equipment. So we have our suction line here, which is in yellow. At the end of our line, we put like a suction strainer. And this goes into the sap tank. You don't want this to sit right at the bottom of the tank, because you may have some, especially towards the end of the season, it gets jelly in there. So the jelly will plug the strainer. So if you have, like at one point you notice the equipment is not pumping, take it off and clean the strainer here. That may be the problem. This will come and connect right to the suction pump, which is right here. Here you have a little cap, so you keep those aside because you're going to need them when you store the equipment. It's a little plug. It's like so. And you plug your suction strainer on it. The next step will be permeate line. Permeate line goes into another tank where you're gonna accumulate the permeate into like a small barrel, a clean barrel, because you're gonna be using that water to clean the RO afterward. So you follow the blue line, and you have right here in between the two, We're going to remove the clips that's on it. Okay. Push on the ring and pull the plug out. There you go. Put the clip back on. Actually, tubing won't come out if the clip is off. Okay, it's just a safety, but like it won't cause problem. On this here, on the red line, we have another one, a smaller diameter tubing in red, which is our concentrate. And that's going to plug right here. So the concentrate, normally these are made to work in batch. So that means that you're drawing the sap from the sap tank that feeds the evaporator, for example, and return the concentrate to the same tank while you're putting the permeate aside into another tank or a small clean barrel to clean the equipment. On the T here, you have an adjustment valve. So this machine is made to work at 100 PSI. You can no more than that though. You can work at lower pressure, but like it's made to work 100 PSI. So by closing or opening the valve here, you will adjust your pressure on the equipment. So the first thing you do, you're gonna insert that into a bucket, okay? Because these membranes, despite they're brand new, you're gonna take like clean water that doesn't contain iron or manganese, because like you don't have permeate at that time of the year, unless you have a large producer next to you where you can get a few 5-gallon bucket often. And we're gonna rinse the machine. So when we rinse the machine, if you go into your manual, there is the diagram that will show you where to put all your lines. So during the rinse, this is on the suction of pure water, and those two are to drain, okay? Once the machine has been rinsed with about 10 gallons of water, we're gonna do a wash. So you're gonna put a certain quantity of caustic, okay, that your store will supplies to you, and you will wash the machine. So when you do wash, all the tubing are returning into the same bucket, because you're doing a closed loop. So like you're going into a circle and you let it wash for about half an hour, okay? Once the wash is done, then you're gonna do another rinse. So this is gonna go into a drum or small tank of water, while those two are going to drain, okay? So after that, we're ready to start concentrating sap. So likely, I would suggest that you put, since you've done the wash with those filters, I would suggest that you take those filters out, put them aside into a bucket, a wet bucket, because you're gonna be able to reuse them to do other wash, and put a fresh filter to do your concentration, okay? So we've replaced our filter. We have a tank that has sap in it. So we will introduce that into the tank, the suction line. The concentrate, if you decide to work in batch, will return to the same tank, while the permeate will go into another reservoir or another tank to accumulate to do your next cleaning. The nice thing with permeate, it does not have any contaminants in it. So you have no iron, you have no manganese, no nothing. And that's what you want for membrane. But in early season, you may have to use other water. So that's why we introduce into the manual here in a page where the minimum guidelines for the water. Okay, so if you have like a water analysis and your water is into those specs, there's no problem to use it. But if you have a water that does stain the kitchen sink or something, you see red staining in the bathtub and stuff like this, likely it has high iron in it. It's preferable that you don't put it in there. Manganese and iron are the enemies of membranes, okay? So you go through the season, you know, you do your daily wash, you do good rinse, okay? You don't want to let the equipment sit in sap. So if you have like 2 batches, let's say you have some sap in the morning and you know you're gonna do it again in the afternoon, don't let it sit in sap, rinse it afterward. It's not necessary, maybe if the performance doesn't drop too much, it's not necessary that you do like a wash with caustic, but you just do a good rinse. Okay, so with that, then it's going to be permeate in there, and you're going to get all the bacteria or most of the bacteria out of the system, and the sugar won't deposit on the membrane. At the end of the season, you know, once we're done, what we're going to do, we're going to work the machine, and we will have to clean it, prepare it for storage. Okay. Membranes could be stored in there, okay? You can, but you have to do very good wash, okay? A couple of wash in a row with caustic and extremely good rinse. And so that's why you want to have good quality water to do that. Ideally, permeate, okay? So if you choose to store it in there, once you've done your wash and your rinse, you could store it with pure water and sodium metabisulfide or citric acid, which is a pretty good preservative. But you have to make sure that those membranes are being sanitized. The other way of doing the storage is to remove everything, okay? Take the filters out, take the membranes out after you wash them good. Let them drain, don't want to let them dry though. Put them into a plastic bag, okay? And put them in a freezer. So towards the end of when you're ready for the next season, you pull those out of the freezer, let them warm up, and then put them into your RO and perform your early season wash and everything, and you're set to go. Let's have a look at the second machine. Rapidly, for the assembly, it's exactly the same principle, same thing. But this machine is a little different. It has 2 membranes, for one thing, and has no recirculation pump. And I'll explain to you what is a recirculation pump and what does a recirculation pump exactly. Let's put that aside. All right, so this little machine here, you see like the assembly is the same, okay? When you install the membrane, it's exactly the same thing. You only have 1 pump though. And reason being, well, it's less expensive and it's made for a bush of a smaller, less taps, let's say. So it's very important when you run that little equipment to allow more concentrate on the red line than permeate come out. And the reason for it maintains like the cross flow motion of the sap through the membrane, from one end of the membrane to the other end. And this is important because that prevents the membrane from falling up too quick or plugging up too quick. We call it tangent, cross flow motion. So if you try to concentrate too hard, you won't have enough concentrate circulating in the membrane, and the membrane will lose performance more rapidly. Okay, so it's very important that you maintain that. So that's basically it. Like the storage, exactly the same thing as the other machine. It's exactly the same pump as the other machine. On the 3 membrane, the difference, we have the recirculation pump. And what does the recirculation? It maintains a higher cross flow in the membrane, okay? So when you have a higher cross flow, you have less precipitation of the sugar and minerals on the surface of the membrane. So you're able to achieve like higher performance, and you're able to achieve like higher concentration, okay? On the recirculation pump here, you have a little switch. Very important, when you start the machine, you have 3 positions to switch. In the center is stop. If you go to the other side, you face the machine. On your left side, it's automatic, okay? And on the other side, it's on manual. On the automatic mode, that means that the flow switch that's mounted here will activate the pump as soon as the water will start circulating into the system. So it's very important that you make sure that that little pump works. Okay. Typical operation pressure, I did mention it, is 100 psi or less on this machine. It will double in one pass the concentration. And on a batch mode, it will reach, depending on sap conditions and sap temperature, it will reach between 6 to 8 bricks. If sap is warmer and of nice quality, it may reach 8 bricks on a batch mode. While this one here will do about 4 to 5 bricks. And it won't quite double in one pass though. Like if you get sap, let's say at 2.5 bricks, probably will get it at 3.5 to 3.6 in one pass, okay? But it's always affected by quality of the sap and the sap temperature, and I'm sure the sugar content, you know, so that will help, you know, reaching higher bricks. So they're not made for high performance, like the larger machines that can reach like very high concentration level, but they're there to help you. Just getting rid of some water makes like boiling a lot more enjoyable, and you make your syrup a lot faster. So in the morning, as you start gathering the sap, or if you're in tubing as sap flows in, then you can start the machine and start taking water out right away. So it's actually it's gonna start working for you, because once you're ready to boil, the machine will increase the concentration and will still work with you. So on top of your evaporator that may be evaporating 10, 15 gallons an hour, you have like this machine will do 10 to 13 gallon, will remove 10 to 13 gallon an hour of water. So that will be a lot faster for you to make syrup, because I tell you, like 50, 100 taps can, if on a very small evaporator, it can be a long day. So that's the whole idea. So we made a machine that works on 110 volts, okay? Very simple to use. We have a very good instruction manual that details everything. And if there is any question, you're not sure of 100%, call us up. We're there to help you. So thank you very much, and enjoy your season 2021.
If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe and press the notification icon to get updates on new product videos.